Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about support itemization. If you're lost or confused on what you should be building on your supports, this video is exactly what you need. We will be running down the best items for all the support classes so you know what to build for the start of preseason. We'll start off by looking at Enchanter supports. After that, break down the tanks and then finish it off with the poke and damage heavy supports. Now just before we get into enchanters, let's talk about a new item called Steering Wardstone that will affect every single support in the game. This will now be your final late game item you purchase when you run out of item slots for control wards. This item costs 1100 gold and will allow you to store up to 3 purchase control wards. You can only purchase the item once you're level 13 or higher, so it won't even be an option in your build path early on in the game. There are 3 levels to the item as well. Once you've placed 20 stealth wards, the item transforms into Watchful Wardstone, which gives you 25 ability haste and increases your stealth ward and control ward cap by 1. The last upgrade will cost you another 1200 gold and will give you 40 ability haste and 10% move speed. Basically, what Riot is trying to do here is to not have you waste an item slot to hold on to your control wards and give supports a little more power later on in the game. Alright, let's start off by looking at the different mythic item options for enchanter champions like Lulu, Janna, Soraka, and Sona. If you're unaware, mythic items are the strongest items in a game and you can only purchase one. These items will be the ones you rush. We have 4 different mythic options for enchanters. First, we have Shurelia's Battle Song. The stats are very similar to Shurelia's Reverie and the active gets a little bit stronger. It still gives you and your team move speed. However, it will also grant damage now for you and your teammates when you use it. So when would you want to build this item? If you're playing against a heavy engaged bot lane and need to be able to kite back, then this item will be a good option for your enchanters. It will also be a great choice on Rakan to make his all-in and engage super strong. The next mythic is Moonstone Renewer. The item's passive is very similar to Athene's, which got removed from the game. This item gives you AP, health, haste, and mana regen, and the passive heals the most wounded teammate when you're attacking in combat. This is one of the more defensive support options that would be best on Janna, Soraka, and Lulu. The more offensive damage option is Imperial Mandate. The stats are the exact same as the Moonstone Renewer, it's just that the passive is different. When you slow or immobilize a target, you deal bonus magic damage and mark the target. Your ally can then detonate the mark for even more damage. This will be your snowball or more aggressive option. It will really just come down to how your game is going and what you feel is best for the situation. If you have a lead early and are going to be able to play aggro, then opting for Imperial Mandate will be great. If you're behind or just want a more defensive option, Moonstone Renewer will be good too. The 4th option is Locket of the Iron Solari, which is the ultimate defensive choice. You're getting health, haste, armor, and magic resist for the stats, along with the shield from the active. If you're against a heavy dive or assassin enemy comp and just want to prioritize keeping your carries alive, then you can grab Locket as your mythic. This item will likely be a lot more popular on the tankier supports than enchanters. Now that we've covered your first item options, let's talk a bit about the second and third items that are mostly staying the exact same as before. Ardent and Redemption will suit the same purpose they always have. Ardent will remain great as a second or third item if you have auto attack reliant champs on your team. Redemption can be purchased if you want a strong team fight item to keep your carries alive longer. Mikhail's Crucible will remain in the game under a different name. It will now be called Mikhail's Blessing and can be purchased if the enemy team has heavy pick or CC as a second or third item. For Zeke's Convergence, there aren't really any changes except for the passive effect. You no longer have to use your ultimate to trigger the passive. It now procs whenever you immobilize the enemy target and will cause your linked teammate to deal extra magic damage for 4 seconds with their attacks or abilities. This change will make the item a lot more viable on a wider range of supports and can be picked up as an offensive option to buff up your fed carries. Supports will now have easier access to Grievous Wounds with 2 new items. Chemtech Purifier is a 2300 gold item that provides you with ability power, haste, mana regen, and Grievous Wounds. If you're against a heavy healing enemy composition, then this can now be a viable option on your supports. The second new item you need to be on the lookout for is Staff of Flowing Water, which turns out to be the AP variant of Ardent. This may turn out to be the go-to second item option for most enchanters as it seems really strong. It provides you with AP, heal and shield power, mana regen, and a passive that gives you and your ally ability power and move speed when you heal or shield them. Grabbing this as your second or third item will be great to keep your carries safer and also buff them up. For your 4th and 5th items, you will basically just want to purchase one of the items you could have as a second or third item. For example, if you went for Ardent and Zeke's earlier, then grabbing a Redemption and Staff of Flowing Water to round things out would work well. We recommend completing your Runestone for your final item. Now that we've covered enchanters, let's move on to the tanky and gauge supports. These will be champions like Alistar, Leona, Thresh, and Blitzcrank. There are only two good mythic items which we already talked about when going over enchanters, Locket and Shurelius. Locket is the more defensive peel option and Shurelius is the snowbally engage option. If you're ahead early on and just want to keep going in, then Shurelius will enable you to do that. If you just want to provide your team with more survivability and peel from assassins or dive champs, then you can pick up Locket. Once you've completed your mythic, you have a few different options for your second and third items. We already talked about Redemption and Zeke's when going over enchanters. These will still be great for your engage or tank supports as well. Knight's Vow has seen some of its stats changed around as it no longer gives you any armor but offers you more flat health along with some health regen. The passive is also slightly different as it will no longer heal you for damage your linked target does, but will still redirect damage your ally takes and give you 35% move speed when running towards your ally if they are below 50% health. It seems like this will overall be weaker than the previous Knight's Vow and will no longer be a must-buy item on tank supports. Stoneplate is going to be a lot less accessible for tank support champs as it's now going to cost 3,300 gold instead of 2,500. As a late game tank item, you may look to pick it up, but as a second or third item, it's going to take too long to purchase for it to be worth. Mikhail's can be a situational second or third item on tank supports if the enemy team does have a ton of hard CC. Alright, so for tank supports, we have Locket and Shurelius as your first item, then you choose between Knight's Vow, Redemption, Zeke's, and Mikhail's for a second and third item. In most games, it's pretty unlikely you reach more than 3 items as a support, but if you do get to your 4th and 5th items, you can pick up a second or third item option you passed up on earlier, or grab an expensive defense option like Stoneplate, Thornmail, Randuin's, or Spirit Visage based on your needs. If you do reach that 6th item point, pick up Steering Wardstone. The final class of supports we're gonna take a look at now are poke and carry oriented ones. We're gonna run down mages like Xerath, Zyra, Brand, Vel'Koz, and Swain. There are 3 different mythics we think are viable on these champs. Imperial Mandate is the one mythic specifically made for supports that may be viable on all of these champs. The passive gives you more damage when you slow or mobilize a target, which will make your 2v2 pretty strong. Liandry's Anguish will also be an option as the burn damage it provides has always been really good on Zyra, Brand, and Vel'Koz. The only downside is that the item costs 700 more gold than Imperial Mandate, so it's gonna take you longer to hit your spike by going for it. The third mythic item you could rush is Luden's Tempest, which is basically the same thing as Luden's Echo. Like Liandry's, the item costs 3,400 gold, which is expensive, and would take you longer to hit your early spike. The second and third items for these champs are similar to what you would do before, but there are a few new options as well. Rylai's, Zhonya's, and Morello are all good second and third items depending on the situation. A couple of new items which will be really good are Demonic Embrace and Horizon Focus. Demonic Embrace gives you a lot of HP and ability power, along with a passive that burns the enemy for % HP damage. This will be a great second option on Swain for sure, and may be picked up on Brand and Zyra. Horizon Focus will be really strong on Vel'Koz and Xerath. It gives 100 AP and causes your abilities to deal extra damage and reveal the target if the ability is used at longer than 750 range. As you transition into your final items, things will be exactly as before. If the enemy team is stacking a lot of magic resist, you can pick up a Void Staff. If they aren't stacking a Mar, you can go for Rabadons. You can also grab an item you could have as a second item like Banshees, Zhonya's, Rylai's, or Morello's to round things out. Finally, let's take a look at the AD damage-oriented supports like Pantheon, Senna, and Pyke. It's not looking super good for these champs since the price of lethality items have been increased and there is no low-cost lethality mythic item. There are 3 mythic lethality items. Duskblade and Prowler's Claw will be options for Pantheon and Pyke. Duskblade works similar to before, but it now gives you invisibility on takedowns. This could be really good for Pyke as his ult will instantly proc this. Prowler's Claw honestly seems like it will be the go-to on both Pyke and Pantheon. The active provides you with a dash that deals damage and gives you 15% extra damage to your target for 3 seconds. The final mythic lethality item Eclipse is better suited for Senna. The active seems really strong as it gives you move speed, a shield, and % HP damage when you hit an enemy with 2 separate attacks or abilities within 1.5 seconds. This item would give Senna some nice kiting potential and a good chunk of burst as well. From here on out, your build is gonna look pretty much the same as before. Youmuu's and Umbro Glaive will still be great options. There's a new legendary lethality item called Serpent's Fang which may be very situational. The passive provides you with extra damage when hitting a shielded target. This likely won't be very core, but if the enemy team has a lot of shielding champs, then it may be worthwhile to pick up on Senna. The 4th and 5th items are always situational. For Pyke and Senna, you can build more lethality. Pantheon usually likes to transition into some tanky tankier items like Zeke's Convergence, Knight's Vow, or Redemption. But the chances of reaching 4 and 5 items on supports is super low, so you won't even have to worry about it in most of your games. Like all other support classes, grabbing your Wardstone when you run out of item slots will be what you do to round out your build path. Okay guys, that's gonna be all for this one. Have fun experimenting with all the new items in preseason, and be sure to let us know down in the comments which items you think will be the most broken on supports. Also, make sure to subscribe so you stay up to date with all things new here in Season 11. Thanks for watching everyone, and we'll see you next time.